Surviving on a variable income. Here's how I manage as a new salesperson. There are many articles talking about how you can save up $100,000 by the time you're 30. But I was fortunate in the sense that by the time I was 30, I had already saved up $200,000 in the bank. So being successful in a sales job definitely helped out quite a bit, especially with the commissions. However, being on a variable income did come with its own set of challenges. It felt like a financial roller coaster. So at times I was living on my basic salary, which technically made me qualify for financial assistance. But I received commission payouts that were close to a year's salary in the middle of the year and the end of the year. So cash flow became an important consideration in my situation, and here's what I did to survive on a commission-based salary. So the first thing I did was to identify all my expenses. The goal of this step was to identify what I spend my money on and to prioritize. So at that time, I really didn't have much expenses. I only had my transport, food, phone bill, and insurance premiums to worry about. Once I identified the essentials, I would then add in the entertainment expenses. In doing so, I clearly demarketed the needs from the wants. So when it came to the months where I was only drawing my basic salary, I knew exactly what to cut. The next thing I did was open a bank account with a higher interest rate. If you're leaving your money in a standard bank account, they typically only give you about 0.05% of interest. So at that time, I switched over to CIMB, which gave me a 1% interest. That's 20 times more. So the reason I chose CIMB was because there were no hoops to jump through. There was no minimum spending on your credit card. There was no need to gyro your salary into the bank account every month. You simply needed to have your money and hit the minimum sum, which was pretty low, and you get the interest already. Because at the time, I had a low basic pay of only $1,800, and because it was a sales job with a commission, I actually couldn't apply for a credit card during that time. It was my first job. So I had no credit history, I had no salary records, and all my salary records were showing basic pay of $1,800, so I didn't meet the minimum credit card requirement, which I believe is $2,500. But there is a downside to using CIMB because there are only ATMs located at 2 locations in Singapore, and the locations are outside the bank. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'll elaborate in the next point. So the third thing I did to survive was to pay myself first. To deal with the inconvenience of not having ATMs easily accessible, I devised a system where all my salary would go into my CIMB account, and I would budget a certain amount of money to be transferred out to my DBS account, and this would be my expense account. This ensured that the bulk of my money was actually generating a higher interest, while at the same time keeping me to a budget, as I only transferred the budgeted expense amount to the DBS account, essentially limiting the availability of cash to myself. So the CIMB account was my savings account, while the DBS was the expense account. And this really helped also because I could see my money depleting. So it was kind of like seeing money physically disappear from your wallet, and then you start to panic because, oh, I don't have any more cash. But here's where I went a step further. If I actually spent less than the amount I budgeted, I would allow the money to roll over. So it became like a slush fund for any discretionary spending, or to tide me over the low months when I didn't get any commission payouts. But what this really allowed me to do was to keep my savings relatively untouched and earning that higher interest. So a final word on this topic. This system really only works if you have the discipline to follow through. I wasn't the most diligent when I started this system. Like when I got the big commission payouts, I actually spent it on dive trips to places like the Maldives. I bought myself a second-hand Omega watch that cost almost $2,000. Yeah, so discipline is quite important to stick to the plan. Fortunately for me, my lapses in self-control were quite limited, so I didn't end up having to live paycheck to paycheck while on a variable income. In summary, the 4 things you need to do are budget your expenses, open a high-yield bank account, pay yourself first, and stick to the plan. Hey, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you found value in this video, please help me out by liking the video. And if you want more content like this, remember to subscribe. If you really want to show your support, you can turn on the notifications as well.